in excess of 280 miles an hour and covering the quarter-mile distance in less than 5 seconds. Winston Championship Drag Racing from the NHRA. The NHRA Winston Championship Series, 16 races around the United States and Canada with over $1 million in cash going to the champions. The season started in Pomona, California, where defending Top Fuel champion Dick LaHaye declared his intention to repeat, defeating one of the largest Top Fuel fields in history as he beat longtime rival Joe Amato to secure the Winter Nationals title. From Pomona, we move to Gainesville, Florida, the first major drag racing event of the year on the eastern seaboard. There, defending funny car champion Kenny Bernstein obliterated the record book and totally dominated the field as he, too, proclaimed his intentions to repeat as Winston champion. Then it was off to just outside Commerce, Georgia, and the new Atlanta Dragway. Eddie Hill, carrying the first ever on-board Top Fuel camera, won his second consecutive title of the year, giving notice that LaHaye will certainly not have an easy tour in 1988. Most recently, NHRA debuted its newest national event at the spectacular new Memphis Motorsports Park. The Pro Stock Final saw two men unaccustomed to such success. Kenny Delco and Tony Christian had defeated all the big names in the category, and Christian took the day, his first event title, and moved into the points lead for this year's championship. Now we come to Baton Rouge and the 13th annual Kmart Champion Spark Plug Cajun Nationals at State Capitol Dragway, where the largest crowd in the history of this event has jammed the grandstand. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClellan, and welcome. At the end of the first round of competition, the Winston points chase is tightened even further. In Top Fuel, Joe Amato has got the lead, closely followed by Eddie Hill. Then it is Darrell Gwynn, Frank Bradley, and the defending Top Fuel champion Dick LaHaye is currently in 5th. In funny car competition, Mark Oswald is at the top of the list in funny car. The current champ, Kenny Bernstein, right behind in 2nd. 3rd is Ed McCulloch, Jim Head is 4th, and John Force rounds out the top 5. Pro Stock standings find Tony Christian continuing to hold on to a slim lead, with Bruce Allen 2nd, Butch Leal 3rd, Kenny Delco is 4th, and Warren Johnson in 5th. The reigning Pro Stock king, Bob Glidden, is in 6th place. These standings were all affected by the outcome of that first round of racing. For the details on that story, here's my good friend Steve Evans.
Well, Dave, for funny car points leader Mark Oswald, life is good so far. In the first round, he got around Jim Head, and he has a bye in the second round, a freebie, just the way the competition happened to work out. But by the semifinals, things will get tougher. He will race either Kenny Bernstein or Don the Snake Prudhomme. They match up coming up in a few minutes in that second round. Bernstein is the quickest driver here in the category, a track record 5.47 earlier today. I talked with him.
We've been struggling. You know it. A lot of people know it. That's not going to win the race today all day. You have to do it 3 more times, but it's at least nice to come back around a little bit.
What do you think got away from you after setting the record at Gainesville?
Well, the tracks are not quite as good as Gainesville. That's a beautiful atmospheric conditions, and racetrack can take all the power you can make. These tracks, you got to be very ginger with them, and when we go out there to make a lot of power, they smoke the tires, and it'll get worse today because it's going to get hotter.
Well, for Pro Stock points leader Tony Christian, it's an entirely different story. He is not a happy man. In round number 1, he faced off with Frank Iaconio. Iaconio got off the mark first, and even though Christian was quicker, Iaconio got the win light. Tony Danny Christian could lose his points lead to Warren Johnson. His Oldsmobile is the quickest car so far at 7.38 seconds. If he wins this race, he could vault all the way from the 5th spot to the top of the list. Now, in Top Fuel, it's a three-way dogfight. Darrell Gwynn, Joe Amato, and Eddie Hill all within 3/100ths of a second of each other. Darrell Gwynn, the quickest of the three, a track record 5:15 in qualifying.
This ain't the normal Baton Rouge that we're used to. You know, we're used to the hot, muggy conditions and the real tricky track. I feel this track is as good as we've ever been to this year, and the weather conditions are good. It's not as muggy as it normally is, so we're taking advantage of it.
Round number 2 of Top Fuel Racing finds Eddie Hill in the near lane of the racetrack as we ride with him, the in-car camera, showing you what it's like for Eddie Hill on the burnout. This dramatic shot shows you a number of the functions that Eddie Hill performs. Earlier, Steve Evans took a look at the car and some of the things you can't see.
Unlike so many of the Top Fuel dragsters and funny cars that use timers to perform various functions, shifting, clutch lockup, fuel system, the quickest and fastest car of them all, Eddie Hill's, is still driven the old-fashioned way, by hand. Now, with our onboard camera, you see Eddie off the starting line release this handbrake. You also see him lock up the clutch by punching this button. He does that 1.5 seconds down the racetrack and has never missed by more than 1/10, the computer tells us. So his internal clock is mighty accurate. You also see him punch this button. That's the shifter. That controls the 2-speed. What you may not see is this lever over here. Now, when he pre-stages, he moves that forward. That's to give the engine more fuel. Now, also, while pre-stage, he turns on his computer right here. Now, this is kind of the panic button, this blue in here. That's the high-speed lean-out. In a tough situation, he can punch that button, lean out the motor, and get some more horsepower. But you risk possibly hurting some pistons. Now, what you definitely can't see with the onboard camera is down here. This is the fuel shutoff at the far end. This controls the left parachute, and this controls the right parachute. So all in all, Eddie Hill may be the busiest driver in drag racing.
Backing up after his burnout, Eddie Hill has his hand on the brake. You see the view that Eddie Hill, the driver, has out in front of him a long ways. His wife, Ursi, backing him up into his own tracks. His opponent in the far lane is a lumberman from Montesano, Washington. This is Earl Whiting. Whiting at the wheel of the Valvoline Special beat Ray Stutz in round number 1. It was a stroke of luck for Eddie Hill that advanced him into the second round of competition. His first round opponent, Dennis Porcel, broke after the burnout, giving a single run to Eddie Hill. He was trying to get a good low lap time to earn the lane choice for round number 2, but a wheel stand stopped that.
Eddie, this car tends to lift the front wheels off the starting line every run, but not that high.
No, not that much. That's a little excessive. We're going to have to adjust for that a little.
What do you do? A little weight on the front end? How do you balance it?
Put a little weight in it, and might have to take a tad wing out of it, too, maybe.
Eddie Hill and his crew have added about 30 pounds to the nose of that bright yellow dragster and adjusted the wing to reduce just a little bit the amount of traction available on the rear tires. Hill and Whiting both staging very carefully. Hill releases the brake. Whiting red light. Another stroke of luck for Eddie Hill, and something goes wrong. You saw Hill's head go forward, indicating the power just stopped. For Eddie Hill, it is an expired engine. As we look again, you see Whiting red light. He leaves the starting line too soon. And for Eddie Hill, he automatically advances into the semifinals, but it was a costly run. That puff of smoke indicating an exploded engine. Steve?
Well, Dave, here's the damage report on Eddie Hill's car. You can see the holes in the body, the oil. This one has been savaged. Even the supercharger is loose on top of the motor. And Eddie Hill, this looks like an engine change to me.
Yeah, absolutely. That one's wounded beyond repair, looks like.
I can't remember the last time you had motor problems like this.
It's been a long time. We've been lucky.
You had some problems between the first and second round, though. What was that all about?
We over-centered the Sprague in a 2-speed. When the car tried to turn over like that, and I backpedaled and set it down, I got back on the throttle, and the transmission turned loose and the engine zinged way up. And that probably damaged something internally. We didn't change the engine, probably should have before.
Well, there's going to be a change now for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Eddie Hill, this crew's got a lot of work to do.
So Eddie Hill's unseen transmission problems in round 1, possibly leading to the engine failure in round 2. The 1988 NHRA Kmart Champion Cajun Nationals are being brought to you by Goodyear Eagle Tires. Goodyear, because there really is a difference. And by Champion Spark Plugs. More people rely on Champion than any other spark plugs in the world. And by Budweiser, for all you do, this Bud's for you. The NHRA Safety Safari cleaning up the track. We'll be right back to the Cajun Nationals. Cajun Nationals, the crew hard at work on Kenny Bernstein's Buick Funny Car. He wants to retain his first-round performance of a 5:47, which was a new track record when he races Don Prudhomme in round number 2. Right now, we are in round 2 action in Top Fuel Eliminator as Joe Amato, the fastest driver on this racetrack, goes off against Gary Ormsby. These Top Fuel dragsters are powered by a racing engine that utilizes nitromethane for fuel and produces somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 horsepower. They are very similar in appearance, but actually they can be quite different in design. Ormsby, driving the Castrol GTX Special, defeated Jack Ostrander in a close race in round 1, while Joe Amato, in beating Richard Holcomb, recorded his 3rd consecutive over 280-mile-an-hour run. Amato's last 2 qualifying efforts and that first-round victory all over the magic 280-mile-an-hour mark. A tribute to his driving ability and the tuning skills of Amato's crew chief, Tim Richards. Now it is up to Gary Ormsby to try to stop the charge of Joe Amato at the wheel of the TRW Special. Both drivers concentrating on the start. And an excellent lead by both men. Some engine problems for Gary Ormsby as Joe Amato takes the victory. 5.20 seconds, and look at the speed. Over 282 miles an hour, his 4th consecutive run over 280. Back on the starting line, Frank Bradley approaches the puddle of water that allows those huge 18-inch wide tires to break traction easily and start to smoke. That's the ultimate in burning rubber. It gets those tires very hot, providing the utmost traction available to the driver. Steve's at the far end with Joe Amato.
You've really got a 3-way war going here between Darrell and Eddie Hill and yourself.
Yeah, Eddie's been real lucky. In first round, he got by with the, a problem. He did a wheel stand and he won. That round, the other guy red lighted on him. So Darrell better watch out because Eddie's been running good. But Tim, my guys are really doing a good job in the car this weekend. They're making it steady. You go over 280 mile an hour, 4 runs in a row. That really says you've got a lot of horsepower.
It sure does. See you in the semifinal.
Thank you.
Joe Amato obviously pleased with not only his consistency, but also his performance. On the starting line, Bill Mullins in the far lane of the racetrack is the competition for Frank Bradley. Bradley is the national record holder for speed at over 286 miles an hour. He beat Dan Pastorini in round number 1. Bill Mullins, in his first round race, defeated Connie Coletta. The 52-year-old Pelham, Alabama driver continues to use the canopy over the cockpit, which provides some aerodynamic benefits and cuts down on the wind buffeting. Mullins is racing against the Enco Special of Frank Bradley. Bradley, at 290-inch wheelbase, has got one of the longest cars in the sport. He pulls a quick lead over Mullins and extends it at the finish line to advance to the semifinals. Frank Bradley, 5.25 second elapsed time. His speed over 276 miles an hour. On the starting line, the quickest car on this racetrack this weekend is the young Miami, Florida-based driver, Darrell Gwynn. While Gwynn may have the low elapsed time, he has got to be concerned about his competition, 49-year-old Gene Snow of Fort Worth, Texas. A veteran of both funny car and top fuel competition, Gene Snow is a proven winner. Steve?
Well, Frank Bradley, a 5:25. The starting line is good as it's ever been here.
Well, we run a 23 in qualifying, a 24, and a 25. It's consistent. I got to say that for it.
But it looks to be a little rough at the finish line. Your car, when the parachutes came out, was bouncing around.
Yeah, it's rough. The car's a little flexible up here, and it's moving all over the place when it hits the rough surfaces. We went off the end of the racetrack twice this weekend trying to stop it.
Will mid-20s win this race?
It's going to be tight.
We'll be watching. Steve, by Frank Bradley's reaction, it's obvious he thinks the 520s will be lacking, possibly because of this man, Darrell Gwynn, who had a 5:15 in qualifying. Gwynn set to do his dry burnout, and a little bit of tire smoke indicating a loss of traction. In his first round race, Darrell Gwynn defeated the defending Winston champion, Dick LaHaye. while his competition, Gene Snow, at the wheel of the Snow Oil Company Special, defeated Arkansas's Rudy Topke. Snow in the far lane of the racetrack, making a final check of the gauges. Both cars very similar, using the small front wheel and tire combination that was pioneered by Don Garland. Both drivers now beginning to concentrate on the starting process. The crewman for Darrell Gwynn flipping the switch that activates the data recording on board computer. As they approach the starting line, they will roll their front wheels into light beams stretched across the track that activate the stage lights at the top of the tree. Starter Buster Couch sends them on their way. A hole shot, an advantage for Gene Snow, but Darrell Gwynn, by just a matter of inches, pulls out an important victory. Gwynn, look at the time at a 5:18. That is the elapsed time to cover a quarter of a mile from a standing start. As we look again in slow motion, you see the advantage build up at the start by the brilliant leave by Gene Snow. Darrell Gwynn now has to drive him down. And here is where horsepower is all important. At the top end of 1,320 feet, Darrell Gwynn streaks by Gene Snow at over 274 miles an hour to advance to the semifinals to race against Eddie Hill. The other pair in Top Fuel semifinal action finds the fastest car today, Joe Amato, against the national speed record holder, Frank Bradley. Back in the funny car pit area, work proceeding on Don Prudhomme's Pontiac. As the crew is facing a challenge, they have to prepare this car to race against the quickest funny car today, and that, of course, is Kenny Bernstein. On the starting line, you hear the Pro Stockers getting underway. Larry Morgan against Joe Lapone. One name is missing in this 16-car field, that of Butch Leal. Where is he? Steve has the answer.
Butch, it's been a long time since the dreaded did not qualify has applied to you.
It sure has, Steve. It's been 5 years, and it's pretty hard to swallow. It really is. And but you got to thinking about it last night as you lay down and thinking about the qualifying. I remember 5 years ago was the number 1 qualifier versus number 16 was about 2,500s. And these days it's 5. We've had a 500 separating the field. And I made a little mistake out here this weekend by trying this one engine and changing over and putting our good engine in, and went out and it missed. The needle and seats blew off of it and came back and ran real well yesterday afternoon, but the temperature went from 79 to 90 degrees, and everybody went slower, and I'm the first alternate, but that didn't get me in the race.
The carburetor problem contributing to the difficulties experienced by Butch Leal this weekend. Larry Morgan, driving the Castrol GTX Oldsmobile, beat and upset Nick Nicolas in round number 1. While Joe Lapone is back at the wheel of a Camaro, having sold his new Beretta he debuted this year, he is awaiting delivery of a new race car. Morgan last to stage and first to leave. A great pole shot by Larry Morgan as he pulls ahead of the Joker Camaro of Joe Lapone and advances into the semifinals. His time, 7.54 seconds. His speed, over 184 miles an hour. Here's Frank Iaconio at the wheel of the Super Shops Pontiac. We saw him defeat the Mid-South champion, Tony Christian. Now he's racing against the number 1 qualifier and the Southern Nationals Pro Stock champ, Warren Johnson. Iaconio is already up into the staging beams and has fully staged. This puts a great deal of pressure on Warren Johnson. Iaconio obviously comfortable with this style of racing. Johnson in his first round race easily beat Gordy Rivera, now up against one of the sharpest drivers of all, Iaconio. Johnson driving the AC Delco Oldsmobile, taking his own time, running his own race into the staging beams. The RPMs begin to build. And it's a red light start for Johnson. Automatically, the win going to Frank Iaconio. The pressure may be just a bit too much for Warren Johnson. And Iaconio coasts through the winner and advances into the semifinal. Meanwhile, back in the pit area of the number 1 funny car qualifier, the crew getting Scott Cullen's Oldsmobile ready to race against Ed McCulloch. Round number 2 of funny car competition at the Kmart Champion Cajun Nationals. Cajun Nationals. A huge crowd on hand here. We'd like for you to join us in Englishtown, New Jersey for the 19th Annual Budweiser Summer Nationals, July 14th through the 17th. More great NHRA Winston Championship drag racing in the Northeast. Now in the Deep South, it's the Levi Garrett Chevy Beretta out of Rare and Morrison Racing in Arlington, Texas. The driver is Bruce Allen. Racing against him, the Pontiac of Jerry Ekman and Bill Orndorff. This team out of Ventura, California, sponsored by Pennzoil, had a great first-round victory as they defeated Kenny Delco. Meantime, Bruce Allen was up against the hole-shot artist Reed Wisnett out of Atlanta, Georgia, and Allen came out the victor to earn the right to race against Ekman. 500 cubic inches, running on racing gasoline, utilizing two 4-barrel carburetors. These cars weigh no less than 2,350 pounds with the driver on board. Highly sophisticated racing machines. A great start for both men. Evenly matched. Bruce Allen by just a couple of inches. 7.50 seconds. His speed over 186 miles an hour. That is one of the closest races you'll ever see. As we look again in slow motion, both drivers react at the same time to the green light. As they moved down the racetrack, neither Allen nor Ekman had been able to pull out a lead until the last few hundred feet of this quarter mile. Then Bruce Allen used the power of that Chevrolet Beretta to pull a win of only inches over Jerry Ekman. The time difference, 1/1000th of a second.
You know, we've often said that NHRA Championship drag racing offers the closest competition in all of motorsports. How about a race, Bruce Allen, that you won by 1/1000th of a second?
Yeah, it was a close race. I tell you, this Levi Garrett Chevrolet came through. It was pure horsepower. Jerry's a...
Here comes Jerry Ekman. That's okay, Jerry. A 750 for both of you guys. Great race.
I've lost by less than 100th lately.
That one you lost by 1,000.
That's the story of my life. I don't mind losing to a gentleman like this, but I'm just getting tired of losing.
Okay, Jerry Ekman, a great sport. Bruce Allen, a great drive.
Here's Bob Glidden, the reigning Winston Pro Stock champion for 8 years. Bob Glidden has carried the big number 1 on the side of his car. But this has not been the season that Bob Glidden wants to put into his scrapbook. He did not qualify well at this event. He is currently 6th in the point standing. Racing against him is Morris Johnson Jr. Johnson defeated Glidden at the Winter Nationals using a starting line advantage, a hole shot, to take the victory. In the first round race, Bob Glidden was 2/100ths of a second quicker than Morris Johnson. That quicker elapsed time earned him the right to select his lane. He picked the lane nearest the camera. Glidden at the wheel of the Motorcraft T-Bird Estate. Then Morris Johnson again gets an advantage at the starting line over Bob Glidden. And at the finish, a half a car length, Morris Johnson defeats Glidden, 7.51 seconds. His speed, 184 miles an hour. And Johnson is quickly coming to the forefront as one of the premier drivers on the starting line in drag racing. Johnson with 4/100ths of a second advantage off that starting line. Difficult now for Glidden to come up and pass that Pontiac. The power of the Ford began to make its move, but it was just a little bit too late. Johnson, with that big lead off the starting line, was able to hold off Glidden, even though Glidden ran a quicker elapsed time and a faster speed. The win moved Johnson into the semifinals to race against Frank Iaconio, Johnson having the choice of lanes. The other pair of the Pro Stock semis fight Larry Morgan against Bruce Allen, with Allen having the lane choice. Meanwhile, back in the top fuel pit area, Jerry Amato is checking the percentage of nitromethane in the fuel, while Joe Amato is getting the readings out of the computer on the previous run. The crew has stripped the engine to the bare block. This is preventive maintenance only. No problems for Amato as he goes into the top fuel semifinals. This standing room only crowd at State Capitol Dragway in Baton Rouge, Louisiana has a hometown favorite to cheer for. It is the team of Candies and Hughes based in nearby Houma, Louisiana. Their driver is Mark Oswald out of Cleves, Ohio. Oswald finished number 2 in the world last season. He is currently leading the Winston Championship points chase, which carries a payoff of $150,000 to the Winston Funny Car champion at season's end. Oswald, by virtue of the competition, has a single. He is trying for lane choice in the semifinal. In a flawless run, Mark Oswald has an elapsed time of 5.54 seconds. His speed over 266 miles an hour. The bright red canopy protecting Darrell Gwynn's crew from the Louisiana sunshine as they prepare the Budweiser Special for its race against Eddie Hill. Coming up a bit later at the Kmart champion Cajun Nationals, who's had an opportunity to stop by Eddie Hill's pit area, where there's lots of work going on.
Well, here you can see the biggest problem with Eddie Hill's motor from the second round. This giant hole in the side of the block where a connecting rod got loose in there and punched out a big chunk of metal. Believe it or not, they will salvage this block. It'll cost a little bit of money, but they weld in what they call a window in it. They probably won't run it again. They'll sell it to maybe one of the alcohol funny car dragster racers and replenish their bank account with a few $1,000s. Now, right now, the crew looks to be right on time as far as preparing this new engine. They had to use a new supercharger as well. It was trashed in the second round, but with the quality help they've got on all the parts and pieces that Eddie Hill never had before this year, they'll be back in the staging lanes for the semis. You can bank on it.
An incredible amount of work performed on these race cars between rounds of competition. Backing up into his own tracks is John Force. The body is being raised on the Castrol GTX Oldsmobile to allow Austin Coyle, the crew chief, to reach in, remove a wire off the ignition system, which allows John Force's car to fire on 2 magnetos. Force is racing against Bruce Larson, driving the Century Tack Engage's Oldsmobile. He is part of Joe Amato's racing team. Both Larson and Amato utilize the talents of the same crew chief. That is Tim Richards, tuning both a top fuel dragster and a funny car at the Cajun National. Both cars are now staged and ready for the start. And it's a red light for John Force. Force also loses control slightly and drifts across the center line, but he was eliminated at the start by leaving too soon. That got him the big red light, giving Bruce Larson the win, 5.60 seconds. Larson very competitive on this day in Baton Rouge. The super sleek Buick of Kenny Bernstein laying down a track of rubber across the starting line, while the crew for his competition, Don Prudhomme, gently lowers that fiberglass Pontiac body over the tubular racing chassis. Between these two drivers, they have amassed a total of 7 World Championship crowns. For 3 consecutive years, Kenny Bernstein has been the Winston champion. Earlier in his career, Don Prudhomme put together a string of 4 championships in a row. As we heard earlier, Kenny Bernstein, the Budweiser King, has regained his early season performance. He is the quickest car in eliminations, with a 5:47 to his credit when he defeated Johnny West in the first round. That was a rematch of last year's finals at the Cajun. But Don Prudhomme is also quick, a 5:49, making him the second quickest car in competition, driving the Skoal Bandit. Prudhomme in the far lane. Bernstein has selected the near lane. Into the staging beams they come. A flash of yellow and a green light start for both drivers. Bernstein outdistances Prudhomme. The elapsed time for Bernstein, 5:53, falling off the earlier pace a bit, but the temperature has increased here at State Capitol Dragway, and if it is hot for Bernstein, it's hot for every racer, including Ed McCulloch. As his crew chief Bernie Federley looks on, McCulloch streaking out of the burnout box. His competition is, as I told you earlier, the #1 funny car qualifier. This is Scott Coletta at the wheel of the Coletta Flying Services Oldsmobile. Let's go to the far end and Steve Evans.
Well, anytime two guys with 7 Winston championships between them line up only 0.02 of a second apart, it's a special moment, Kenny Bernstein. It was your moment today, though, 5:53.
Well, let me say, Baton, like you said, he's a champion and always will be. It's a heck of a race, and he knew he'd be right there with us.
Tell me about the race itself.
Well, left fairly good. It was a little weak in the middle, and I think we damaged it some down here again. We're having a little trouble to catch up with the pistons down here, but Dale and the guys will get it worked out.
Bernstein, of course, referring to the very talented Dale Armstrong, his crew chief. Here's Ed McCulloch, part of the Larry Minor Miller High Life racing team, which also includes Dick LaHaye and Top Fuel. Racing against him, Scott Coletta, 25 years old, out of Ypsilanti, Michigan, the son of Top Fuel driver Connie Coletta. Scott had a 5.51 second elapsed time in qualifying, but has had difficulty duplicating that since then. And he smokes the tires, going violently out of control. McCulloch advances into the semifinals, 5.58 seconds at a speed of over 261 miles an hour. That moves McCulloch with lane choice against Bruce Larson in the semifinals, while it will be the battle of the Big Red Machine. Kenny Bernstein against Mark Oswald. Bernstein choosing the lane. We'll be back. Final racing in Top Fuel Eliminator. Darrell Gwynn against Eddie Hill. The thundering burnout by Darrell Gwynn to be followed by Eddie Hill, who once again is carrying our Diamond V in-car camera. And now let's join Steve Evans with this Quaker State Quick Fact.
Not only is Darrell Gwynn a terrific drag racer, but exploring his trailer, I'd have to say he's also a very organized young man. Now, he did all of this himself. There's 45 sliding drawers, all neatly labeled as to their contents. Let's check out miscellaneous fittings and O-rings. You think these fuel systems are complicated? Take a look at this. Wow. Okay, now let's move over here. Oh, I like this one. This is nuts, 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 and more nuts. And these are not just 10 and 20 cent nuts. We're talking all of these are titanium. They weigh just a fraction of what steel or other materials might weigh. I better put this in the right slot. And also, well, you're looking at about a $2,500 inventory of titanium nuts. As I said, there's over 45 drawers like this. If Darrell ever retires from the sport, he could certainly go into the hardware business.
Steve, I think that retirement may well be a long time coming. Darrell Gwynn in the near lane of the racetrack has the choice of lanes over Eddie Hill. At the wheel of the Super Shop Special, Hill going through his final preparations, getting ready for the run. The Christmas tree right out in front of his helmet. Hill now sets himself back in the car. A flash of yellow and a green light. Hill down track. Right alongside of him is Darrell Gwynn, and Gwynn by half a car length defeats Eddie Hill. The parachutes come out for Hill. His head goes forward, but Darrell Gwynn goes into the finals with a 5.23 second elapsed time. His speed over 274 miles an hour. Let's watch that one again. Reacting to the flash of green light, Darrell Gwynn left the starting line first. As they neared the half-track point, you could see Hill's engine beginning to smoke ever so slightly. But if he was having engine problems, it did not detract that much from his performance. Gwynn pulled ahead by about a half a car length, and that's the way they crossed the finish line.
Well, in this battle of the big, long cars, Darrell Gwynn, you're on top of it at 5:23 to a 5:26. Pretty good drag race.
Yeah, it was. I just can't say how fortunate I am here to be in the final of 2 races in a row. It obviously speaks a lot for our team and our efforts as of late, because to be in the final 2 races in a row really makes me feel good, and we've worked real hard for it. And
means a lot of Winston points, too.
That's right. And it's going to move us up there real close to Eddie and Joe, and we're just going to keep on plugging away.
Steve, while Darrell Gwynn is reflecting a great deal of confidence, the driver that is following the direction of this lady, Jerry Amato, may have something to say about it. Joe Amato will be in the near lane of the racetrack to go against Frank Bradley in his last semifinal race in Top Fuel Eliminator. By virtue of a quicker elapsed time in round number 2, in fact 0.05 of a second quicker, Joe Amato has the choice of lanes. But remember, Frank Bradley has found consistency in the mid-520s. Both cars staged. It's a good start. great race to the finish line as Joe Amato records a 5.19-second elapsed time at over 279 miles an hour, defeating the 5:26 by Bradley. That sets up the final. Joe Amato against Darrell Gwynn, and look who has lane joy. Joe Amato, by virtue of the quicker elapsed time in the semis, has the pick of lanes in the final. In Amato's teammates' pit area, Bruce Larson's crew readying the supercharger for reinstallation on top of the racing engine. Let's go to Steve.
Going into your fourth final round of the year. Incredible.
Well, my team is doing a tremendous job keeping the car steady. Tim Richards and all the guys, and that's what it's all about, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Joe Amato, the current Winston Championship points leader, looking to extend his lead if he can win at the Cajun Nationals. New races on the NHRA Trail this year. The California Nationals in July in Sonoma. In August, it is the Seafair Nationals at Kent, Washington. Then the first part of October, the brand new Super Nationals at the all-new Houston, Texas Raceway. Be sure to join us if you can. Right now, it's semifinal racing time in Pro Stock Eliminator. Morris Johnson Jr. will be racing his Pontiac against Frank Iaconio at the wheel of a similar Pontiac Trans Am. Once again, the New Jersey-based driver has already staged, putting a lot of pressure on Morris Johnson Jr. He has just got to concentrate on driving his own race and let Iaconio worry about himself. And the advantage goes to Morris Johnson Jr. Morris Johnson Jr. for the first time in his career moves into the final with a fine 7.48-second elapsed time. His speed over 186 miles an hour. Back at the starting line as both cars burn out together, we are watching the Oldsmobile of Larry Morgan. He's racing the Chevy Beretta of Bruce Allen. Steve's at the far end of the track with Morris Johnson Jr.
Well, I said earlier this year that this big fellow was just a win waiting to happen. Morris Johnson, 7:48.
Wow. Heat of the day? That's great. Let's see what these guys run here and tell the tale.
And another nice lead. You had a 300s hole shot. Anytime you can get out ahead of Iaconio, you're doing some driving.
Well, thank you. I've really been blessed and get some good life today. Been lucky, I think.
Morris' luck may have something to do with it, but it's driving skill that gives you those great starts. Bruce Allen in the near lane. Larry Morgan in the far lane. And Larry Morgan's got one of those great starts. Bruce Allen's got to make up a lot of distance. And he does by just inches. Bruce Allen goes into the finals 7.47 seconds, 100th quicker than Morris Johnson Jr. Bruce Allen earns the right to the lane choice, but most importantly, he defeats Larry Morgan in this semifinal race. As we watch again, Larry Morgan had the advantage at the start by nearly 0.05 of a second. But the power of Bruce Allen's Chevrolet began to make itself felt at half-track as they came to the first timing light. 66 feet ahead of the finish line, they were dead even. In that 66-foot distance, Bruce Allen moved ahead by just inches to defeat Morgan and earn the right to race Morris Johnson in the Pro Stock Finals, Allen having the choice of lane. The work doesn't stop for the finalists in Top Fuel Eliminator. The crew is preparing Darrell Gwynn's car for his final round match against Amato. We'll be coming right back to the Kmart champion Cajun National. Formed on the racing engine of Joe Amato, he'll be racing against Darrell Gwynn in our Top Fuel final coming up in just a few moments. Right now it is time for the semis in funny car racing, and Bruce Larson in the far lane goes against Ed McCulloch. McCulloch's a big winner at the Southern Nationals in Atlanta, Georgia. Is currently ranked third in the Winston Championship point standing. His competitor, Bruce Larson, enjoying the finest season of his career, making it thus far to the semifinals. Both Oldsmobile-bodied machines staging very carefully. And the advantage goes to McCulloch. But Bruce Larson drives around him at the finish line, putting the 49-year-old Pennsylvania resident into the very first final round appearance of his career. As we watch again, you can see the starting line prowess of Ed McCulloch coming into play. By 0.04 of a second, he moved ahead of Bruce Larson. A big lead for McCulloch, but at half track, that lead started evaporating. As they approached the finish line, Bruce Larson pulled ahead.
Team Amato has both Joe's dragster and Bruce Larson's funny car into the final round, the first final ever. And how long have you been racing?
20 years in these funny cars.
I've looked forward to this moment to talk to you guys in this situation.
I've looked forward to it longer than you. It's great.
Tell me about the race. He was out on you a bit.
Yeah, just about 1,000 feet I pulled past him, but he was up a little ahead of me. We just had a little more top end than he did. That's where it's at. It's horsepower.
Horsepower is where it's at for this team. The Motorcraft Thunderbird of Candies and Hughes. The crowd favorite, definitely, with Mark Oswald at the wheel. The battle of the big red cars in the semis. It is Kenny Bernstein against Mark Oswald, the two drivers that have battled those Winston Championship chases for the last 3 seasons. Bernstein chose the lane nearest the camera, giving Oswald that far lane, an unknown quantity to them, and smoke off the tires, indicating a loss of traction, and Kenny Bernstein goes into the final. His elapsed time, 5.50. That's 0.04 of a second quicker than was Bruce Larson. So it'll be Bernstein in the finals against Larson, and once again, Kenny has the lane choice. Final round racing at the Kmart Champion Cajun Nationals coming up next. Louisiana, the Kmart Champion Cajun Nationals getting ready for the final rounds of racing. Along with Steve Evans, I'm Dave McClellan, and our Pro Stock finalists have completed their burnout. Bruce Allen has selected the lane nearest the camera. Morris Johnson Jr., driving his Pontiac Trans Am, is in the far lane of the track. Johnson, a bit of an unknown quantity in final round racing. He has never before made the finals of an NHRA championship event. Bruce Allen, finishing number 3 in the Winston Chase last season, has already won a major event this year, the Gator Nationals in Gainesville, Florida. Johnson getting the word to stage. He's out in front of Bruce Allen. And once again, Allen is able to drive around to the championship. 7.44 seconds. The time for Morris Johnson, a 7:52. But what a hole shot for Morris Johnson Jr. Nearly 0.08 of a second advantage at the starting line for the Pontiac, as Allen Chevrolet was far behind at the green light. But at half track, the move was beginning to be made by Allen. But it is pure horsepower at this point, and Allen Chevrolet prevailed.
How about Morris Johnson Jr.? He's a driving son of a gun.
Oh, man, he's awesome. He does a good job, pulls up there every time. You know you got to do good against him, and he's always there. He's great driver.
Was there a moment on that racetrack, on that quarter mile, you thought, it's not me today?
Well, when I pulled it over in second gear, that was the first time I was really aware of where I was, and I could see he was out there about half a fender or fender ahead, and I thought it's going to take some power to get by him, and it did, but he got by.
Joe Amato ready to go for the Top Fuel final when we come back to the Kmart Champion Cajun National. For the Top Fuel title at the Kmart Champion Cajun National, and Gwynn is in uncharted territory. Joe Amato had the choice of lanes. He put Gwynn in that far lane from the camera, the one that we saw Mark Oswald smoke the tires in, lose traction. So Joe Amato may have an advantage by virtue of his lane choice. Both cars have performed flawlessly throughout this entire event. So the concentration now is on getting a good start. And Amato smokes the tires. Darrell Gwynn is your Cajun Nationals champion with an elapsed time of 5.16 seconds. His speed over 273 miles an hour. It was not Joe Amato's day. In the finals, you see, he smoked the tires violently at the start and had to watch as Gwynn disappeared down the racetrack. 20 cars coming to the line finds Kenny Bernstein selecting the lane nearest the camera. His competitor, Bruce Larson, is in the far lane. Larson is familiar with the traction available in this lane, as we saw just a few moments ago. He defeated Ed McCulloch to earn the right to race Bernstein in his first ever final round appearance. Steve's with Darrell Gwynn.
Well, Joe, I have to tell you, performance, of course, but composure may have won this race for you. You didn't let that lane psych you out. It smoked the tires in the dry. You didn't let that bother you. 5:16.
I can't believe it. I'll tell you what, we were backing up from the dry burnout, and we're all deciding what we were going to do. Are we going to hold the brake? Are we going to slow the idle down? And I just waved to my dad. I feel comfortable. I'm going to hold the brake just a tad bit. 5:16. Yeah!
And you lapped on one of the best in the business, Joe Amato.
I appreciate that. I'll tell you, Joe's a tough competitor, and I knew he'd be right there.
Well, this Winston Championship's getting interesting.
You got it, and can't thank everybody enough. Budweiser, Quaker State Dodge, and the entire Bud crew, buddy.
Thank you for a great show. The Glenn clan, they've done it twice in a row, and look, and they're celebrating with them is Joe Amato.
Steve, Joe knows a good party when he sees one. It's really a shame that Darrell Gwynn does not show any emotion. Congratulations to the top fuel champ. Now we're set for the funny car final. Bernstein in the near lane. In the far lane, the Oldsmobile-bodied car of Bruce Larson. Both drivers set. And it's the advantage to Larson. And an upset. Bruce Larson defeats the reigning Winston champion. Bruce Larson wins his first ever NHRA National Event title, putting away the defending Cajun Nationals champion, Kenny Bernstein. Let's watch how he did it. It was that advantage on the starting line for Bruce Larson that paid off 1,320 feet later. As they approached the finish line, it was a pick-em race. It's races like this that prove out the value of the electronic timing and scoring system, because it was truly inches separating those two cars at the finish. Steve's at the far end with the champion.
There's no prouder moment for a driver like Bruce Larson to win on driving ability. A whole shot has done it. You've won your first one. How do you feel?
It's just beautiful. You know, it's a lifetime devoted to trying to get here, and we're going to stay here. And
I have to believe that, looking at the performance today. Now, you said the car would run a little quicker, and it did pick up the pace a bit.
Yeah, I was going to give the credit to Tim because I thought horsepower won the race. I moved at the other end of the track.
No, you won it, my friend.
I know, but thanks. Yeah, it's just, you know, I'm so pleased that I got to say it again that, you know, Century Tax Engages and my crew and the Amato crew have put me where I am. And after all this time, we're going to stay right here. Thank you.
Bruce Larson has won his first one and salvaged the day for the Amato team.
Steve, there's been no change in the top 5 standings in our Winston Championship funny car points chase. Bruce Larson moves from 7th to 6th. In top fuel, Joe Amato may have lost the day race-wise, but he retained his points lead over Eddie Hill, and Darrell Gwynn moved up very close to the top 2. Pro Stock found the biggest reshuffling. Bruce Allen took over the lead from